In this one, we're combining what we've learned. We know how to write an equation given a point and a slope, and we know parallel and perpendicular lines. So you got to remember, parallel lines, exact same slope. Perpendicular lines are negative reciprocals. And now we're just combining that knowledge from the past two sections, and now we're going to create lines that are parallel and perpendicular. So, what are we doing? We're given a linear equation in a certain point, and then we're going to create another equation that passes through this point and is parallel or perpendicular. So, here's what we have to remember. Parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines have negative reciprocals. Which, go back to the other video if you can't remember parallel versus perpendicular. So here's our goal. Here's what we're doing. We need to write a brand new equation that passes through this point and is parallel to this guy. So if I were to draw a quick graph right here, and I were to graph this, my beginning point's 1, my slope is -4, 1, 2, 3, 4, down. There's that line, roughly, right? Roughly. And then, so that's the line that I need to create a line that's parallel to. So if I plotted this point, -2, 7, I need to create a line that goes through that point and is parallel. So it's got to do two things. Brand new equation, parallel to that, and passes through that line. So we're going to take what we know. What do we know about parallel lines and their slope? They're exactly the same. So if this guy has a slope of -4, this line is going to have a slope of -4, and it has to pass through that point. So if I have a point and a slope, I'm going to use the point-slope formula, and I'm going to create that line. So remember what that is. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. I know the slope that I'm using is -4. Here's my x value, here's my y value, and I plug in numbers. Y minus 7 equals -4. X minus a -2 becomes positive, and I get y minus 7 equals -4x minus 8. Add 7 to both sides, and I get y equals -4x minus 1. Okay, so then I could go -1, and then I could go down 4 over 1, down 4 over 1, up 4 over 1, and look. That creates a parallel line. Okay, so let's look at number 2. Do I know the slope of this line? I still want to create a parallel line, and it's got to pass through that point. But do I know the slope right off the bat? No, but I can find it. I just got to work a little bit for it. So I'm going to subtract x on both sides. -3y equals -x plus 9. Divide by -3, and I get y equals, be careful, negative divided by negative is a positive. You have 1/3, 3 is the denominator, and then I get -3. So here, my slope is 1/3. I had to work for it, but I found it. So now I need to have a new equation that's parallel, same slope, it's got to have the same slope, and it needs to pass through this point. So I have a slope, I have a point, I have a point-slope formula, so I'm going to do y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. This is the point that I'm talking about, so y minus a -1 is positive. My slope is 1/3, and then x minus 3. I'm going to distribute my 1/3, so 1/3 x minus 1, and then I'm going to subtract 1, and now y equals 1/3 x minus 2. So if you look at these lines, same slope, different intercepts. That's what I'm after. Okay. Perpendicular lines. Well, now I need to create a perpendicular line that passes through a certain point. So let's take the knowledge that we know about perpendicular lines, negative reciprocals. So if this has a slope of 2, my new slope that's perpendicular to it needs to be the negative reciprocal. So it's going to be -1/2. And it's -1/2, and it passes through that point. So now y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, and I plug in values. Y minus 3, that's my y value, equals -1/2, that's my slope. X minus my x1 value is 4, so I'm going to distribute that -1/2, so -1/2 times x, and then I get a +2, add 3 to both sides, and my new line is y equals negative 1/2 x plus 5. So I can see that I have negative reciprocals and then different intercepts. Okay, look at number 4. Now I have to create a line that's perpendicular to this line and passes through that point. So what do we know about perpendicular lines? Negative reciprocal. If I look at this one, this is in standard form. I don't know the slope off the bat, but I can find it. I just got to work a little bit for it. So I'm going to subtract 5x to both sides, and I get 3y equals negative 5/2 x minus 21. Divide by 3, and I get y equals negative 5/3 x minus 7. I don't even care about the intercept. What I'm really after is that slope. So if this line is negative 5/3, my new line has to be perpendicular, meaning it's going to be a positive 3/5. Positive 3/5. And it needs to pass through this point. So I use my point slope formula, x minus x, excuse me, what am I doing? Been up here too long. Too long I've been up here. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And now I plug in values. Y minus 1 equals 3/5 x minus a negative 5, which creates that positive, and I get y minus 1 equals 3/5 x plus 3, and I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So y equals 3/5 x plus 4 is going to be my final answer. So I'm going to do a second video, and we're going to do more practice problems together.